Hi, everybody. It's T Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self Coaching and Training Call. I do believe we are up to number 28. And so I do want to bring you up to speed on a couple of things that I did over the weekend. So let me just go to the main website real quick here. Wait, cancel. Oh my goodness, there's another ChangeWorks out there now.
Oh no.
ChangeWorks Foundation. Ugh.
Damn them.
Well, it's a pain because, we're the ones who own the federally registered trademark. And so we always have to now send them a letter that says, y'all should look these things up. So,
Well, plus it's hard for us to get our friends to the right place, when we're talking about what we're talking about. And
yeah.
we want to refer them to you and they have trouble finding it's annoying.
Yeah, well, this is part of the challenge, but I'll give you the best way for people to reach us if they want to reach out directly. But anyway, for what I was doing over the weekend, I did finish building out the list of the 27 sessions we've done so far. And so you'll see where I'm at on this. To get to this page, you would go to changeworksystem.com/capital O, capital T, capital S, OOTS for Oracle of the Self. And there you'll find the link to each one of the videos and the link to the raw transcription. So the easiest way for me to do that was to just say, watch the video, click up here, or download the transcript, click down there. The next thing we thought we'd do is plop in a bit of a description, but that's a Chat GPT kind of thing that I want to do kind of next. So anyway, that's what I'll do there. But they're all there. Going all the way back.
Thank you. Thank you a million times. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I will tell you this took 2 movies to do. So there's lots of stuff.
They were bad movies.
Well, because that's the thing, it's one of these tasks that's so, what do I say? There's nothing challenging about it. There's just a lot of procedural pieces. And as long as you don't lose track of where you are in the procedure, you can crank through this stuff pretty fast. But it's one of those things that if someone interrupts you and asks you a question, you go like, wait, where was I? What was I? Where am I? So, yeah. Anyway, so there you go. So Oracle of the Self, OOTS. It might seem a little bit big, but we put in a sample description block, and that's about the right size for it to be. So I'll make it cosmetically more interesting, but at least you can get to the material. So yep. So there you go. There you go. Sliding that out of the way.
Yay!
All right. Now, last time we started looking a little bit about. I was showing you the online ChangeWorks system, and we were talking about Anja and her doing her, is it your cardio training or your core training? I think it was core training.
Core. Yes.
Yeah, core. And so the subject came up. Brian said something about recovering. And I said to him, this was pretty much the last couple of minutes of our call. I said, well, you're absolutely right, but that's actually a different activity. So do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so I thought, well, why don't we go ahead and take a closer look at that so you guys can start building out your own lists instead of thinking that this training you're going through is just a lot of concepts that are interesting to know about and interesting to apply to life situations. You really should be able to apply it directly to a ChangeGrid. And so, like I said last time around, you can use the good old-fashioned paper and pencil way of doing things. So I gave you those forms to be able to do that. But there is an online system, and so I just want to make sure you guys are comfortable. I mean, pretty much everyone has access to this. And Tom and Anja, you guys do know you have an account. So, but I was noticing you guys have never logged into it.
Every time we've tried to get that, we need to.
I'll have to. We'll just
need a remedial session.
Yeah. Just so you know how to do that. It all starts though by when you go to our regular website, changeworksystem.com, you click on access the system, and then it asks you to log in or whatever. Let me see if I can zoom in on this, make it a little bit bigger for everyone to see. One more. Let's see if I can go one more. Zoom in. All right. So, so this is where we left off. Now, again, if you're online and you're using your personal change grid, the whole point of this is that it saves whatever you've done from one session to the next. So you can modify tasks, you can remove tasks, you can do whatever you really want to do. It's all pretty flexible. I wanted to add a couple more activities. So to Brian's point, there's Brian. To Brian's point, developing any kind of a fitness practice, it's not one activity. It's going to end up being a whole set of activities. So I thought it would be good for us to talk a little bit about how to create a good activity list that's actually worth exploring. So let's do this by adding an activity. So Anja, you were the subject, so you want to keep being the subject?
Sure.
Okay, so beyond doing your core training, tell us other mission critical activities that are part of your fitness regime.
Cardio.
All right, so we'll put in completing. All activities must begin with a verb. Completing my cardio training. All right.
Completing my weight training.
Okay, completing my weight training.
And is that a setback?
No, that's weight training. Then stretching.
And stretching.
Okay.
Completing my stretching.
All right. Okay, now, for everyone who's on the call, Anja's ability to, or possibility, if you will, to complete all of these things presupposes that something happened beforehand in terms of activities. So what do you have to do before you can complete your core training?
Get to the gym, change clothes, get to the gym.
Okay, now I'm glad you brought those up because we could put things down like drive to the gym. We can put in things like get dressed for the workout. Okay, we can do all those kinds of things, but we're going to talk about some different kind of qualities about activities that will help you, what do I say, not end up with a list that's too cumbersome to actually use. And so we think about activities as being in the categories of mission critical, mission incidental, maybe mission optional. So let's talk about what is the difference between something that's mission critical and mission incidental. A mission critical activity is an activity that if you actually do it, the benefit comes to you. So it is it's the critical part. It's the part that's going to make the difference. It's the real focus of whatever it is it happens to be. Where if I think about, well, I do need to drive to the gym. Does driving to the gym feel mission critical, mission optional, mission incidental?
Mission incidental.
It's mission incidental. Yeah, you have to get there, no mistake about it.
But I
But
could also do it here.
right, because just because you drive to the gym doesn't guarantee a workout is going to occur. And even presupposing that you have to go to a gym in order to get a workout matters. Keep in mind that these activities don't say completing my core training at the gym or completing my cardio training at the gym. It just says do it. So you could be doing this in a formal setting at home, in a class, whatever it is. So we try not to put activities that are mission incidental on the change grid because they just kind of, well, a couple of things happen. Number one, they just clutter up the activity list. The issue with it cluttering up the activity list is that they take attention away from what really matters. So for example, what if you put driving to the gym and it plots down in apathy, but you're completing your core training plots up in power? Now, the fact that you're driving to the gym plotting down in apathy, what do you guys predict? What's the likelihood that someone's actually going to drive to the gym if they're down in apathy about it?
Not likely.
It could either not be very likely unless what's the buffer for something that's down grid. So it might not be done unless
Move it up.
unless it's just become part of your habit and part of your routine.
Oh,
See, there's a lot of things that we do all day, every day that are downgrade activities. We don't pay any attention to them because they don't cause us any tension. They, in and of themselves, they are downgrade activities, but they don't necessarily dictate whether or not something's going to get done. So let's see if I can explain this to you. If I have to go to the grocery store to get groceries, what's the mission critical part of the whole activity?
the groceries you need.
Getting the groceries, buying the groceries. That's mission critical. Driving to the grocery store. What do you think? Mission critical, mission incidental?
Mission incidental.
It's very far down grid. Now, if I don't really understand tension management, I might think that they're never going to get groceries because they're down grid about driving to the grocery store. But I think that would be an inaccurate assessment. Why do I think that's an inaccurate assessment? Anyone?
Because it doesn't necessarily mean we don't want to do it. It just means we don't really, that doesn't mean anything to us. We just get in the car and we
Right.
go.
It means that, again, for the base answer, we just want to look at the change grid. When it comes to driving to the store, you rate your ability as extremely high and the challenge is being very low. Do you think that that's just accurate? That's just the way it is. I'm driving to the store.
Right.
Right, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so certain incidental activities, or really, in fact, almost all incidental activities are going to plot down grid. And having all that stuff plotting down grid might lead you to believe that what you really need to do is put your energy into moving those incidental activities up grid.
Very interesting.
When in fact, they're fine just where they are, just where they are. And so, for example, I'll give you another one. Let's say that you need to go see the doctor for whatever reason. Well, one of the things you have to do is make an appointment. Is making the appointment mission critical or is that mission incidental?
Mission incidental.
Mission incidental. And so you might plot very far down grid. If I make the appointment, I got to make a phone call. My ability to do that is an 11.9, and the challenge of doing it is about a 1. And so, you're down in apathy. But our lives are filled with things that are going to plot down in apathy, but they're just routine sorts of tasks that we all accept the fact that they have to get done, right? So we don't want to put a lot of energy into those activities.
How do you distinguish between the mission incidental, mission optional, I think you said? Because when I think about driving to the store or even driving to the gym, if the critical issue is getting there or working out, I can do it at home. So isn't that not optional?
Right. But that was going to get to the other thing. Right now, we're assuming that these incidental activities are plotting down in apathy. But there's another possibility that we'll look at in just a second. But you are correct. If I'm plotting this far downgrade about whatever the incidental activity happens to be, I am either going to not really get it done at all or I might delay it. I might become, well, I can go tomorrow. I don't really need to go now, blah, 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 blah. There might be a tension management issue there, but it could also just be that these things are so routine, they're just autopilot for you. So either way, I don't know how much energy I want to put into them. On the other hand, as Brian was just alluding to, what if when you plotted driving to the store, you said, well, my ability to do it right now is a 1 and the challenge is an 11. Now, where does that put you on the grid? Do I need to show you guys the grid, or can you guys envision where very low ability, very high challenge just put you?
That's like in grid.
Very low ability, very high challenge.
Oh, that's up in stress.
That's up in stress.
Yeah.
Now, why might someone be way up in stress when it comes to driving to the store?
Is there agoraphobic?
They could be agoraphobic. Now we have a whole different change grid. But you're absolutely right. There could be reasons. Well, let me share with you guys a little story. Just one second. I want to show you a change grid. So we're seeing exactly what I'm talking about. So again, low
It's
ability.
too hot, T.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
must be it. Low ability, high challenge. So here's my thing. So on Saturday, Linda needed to run to the store, and she hadn't been to our most recently built Fry's, which is on the outside of the 303 on your way to Wickenburg. And like that matters to several of you on the call, but nevertheless, it matters to
We know
several.
where it
All
is.
that bad traffic.
Bad traffic.
Yeah, yeah. And so, that's where Linda was going. She gets out of the store and she's driving home. And for everyone's benefit, if this is 2 miles, I'd be shocked if it's even that far. The check engine light comes on.
Hmm.
Now, when the check engine light comes on, what happens to your level of productive tension?
Goes up.
You go.
It's going to go up because it's red and it's blinking at you and it says, stop driving now. And it's like, gives you all these like, world is ending sort of messages. And again, it's very effective tension management. Linda pulled over and she was trying to figure out what was going on and blah, blah, blah. And so she calls me. And I say, well, is the car drivable? And yeah, the light is on, but it says, you look it up, it says it's probably something to do with an emission sensor or something like that. And mind you, for everyone else, if you're a car person, we've been dealing with scorching hot temperatures. So for all I know, it's the heat is causing these sensors to misbehave. So Linda is not even a mile away by the time she pulls over. And I said, darling, just come home. It is 114 degrees. I don't care about the car. I care about you sitting in the car. So
Right.
if you can drive it, come home. And then we can do whatever it is that needs to be done. All right, so I'll tell you the rest of the story, how it all resolves in a second. But now think about what just happened there. What was usually a routine thing, go to the store, has a new element introduced about it that moves it upgrid.
Mm-hmm.
Now it may very well become mission critical. You with me? Because if you don't have a car that you can use and you need to go to the grocery store, you need to go here, go there, whatever the case may be, you may certainly be moved upgrid, and you may at least perceive yourself as now having a new mission critical activity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys with me so far on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if it's really mission critical or not because it's coming from the voices inside your head that are very far upgrid. So tell me about voices in your head when they're very far upgrid. How
hard to know
useful
for
are
sure.
they?
Not,
Go ahead, Angel.
they're not useful because you're not sure whose voice it is.
Right. Is this the voice of logic? Is this the voice of emotion? Is this the voice of, I don't know, maybe history, something happened before, similar sort of situation, what's really going on? What's really going on with this? And I know that any assessments I make, any decisions I make, whatever, if it's happening while I'm upgrid, what can you tell me about the quality of my assessment skills? What about the quality of my decision making, the quality of my action taking?
Very, very low in all of it.
Very
Mhm.
low. This is going to be very reactive, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, poor decision making. Chris is typing a couple things over. Everyone can see those in the chat as well. And so I'm going like, this is not the place. I need, and because I do tend to like exist inside of the green circle, mostly because I don't think I'm actually from this planet, but that's a different discussion for a different day. I think that the most important thing is for me to say, I need Linda to be inside the green circle.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever this situation is at worst inconvenient. Right? That we don't need to bestow any more power on that than that. No one is hurt. It's nothing like that. The worst case scenario is that we're going to be inconvenienced for a while. Well, if that's the worst that's going on, I don't think we got much to worry about. So I said, Linda, you come home, you do whatever. But in that moment, it could feel mission critical. Now, if someone can calm down, can lower their level of productive tension to get closer to, if not inside of the green circle, now what happens to the prevalence of logic versus emotion and reasoning abilities and decision making? What happens as we move to
Gonna
the
make better decisions because you're not compromised.
right?
Yeah, you
Better
balance.
just you're not compromised. Your brain isn't being hijacked by whatever's going on neurochemically, whatever memories, voices are attached to all those kinds of things. All that stuff gets to shut up, and there you can be in the center of the change grid, very logical. So I'd like you guys to tell me some ways that we can get groceries, even if the car can't be used.
They'll deliver.
They'll
Yep.
deliver them.
Mhm.
Yay. What else could we do if we need to
They
get to
could-
the store?
They could ship them to you.
They can ship them to me. What else? I need to get to the store. What else could I do?
Somebody else could go for you.
Someone else
Yep.
can run the errand for me. What else could I do?
You could borrow my car.
I could see if I could borrow someone's car. I could see if they would take me. I could grab an Uber. That's what Chris just popped over there. And so, it's kind of like when you come back downgraded, you go like, wait, I've got a lot more resources than I thought I did. Then
So
suddenly,
that's mission optional.
no, the mission. Oh, did was I originally talking about something mission optional?
No, it's become mission optional.
Yes, it's become mission optional. But
Got it.
the
got
example
it.
I was going to give you is that if you were going, let's say you made a doctor's appointment, making the appointment is incidental. But if they also say, well, and while you're here, you could also download our online appointment setting app where you'll be able to see all of your patient records and blah, blah, blah. At that particular moment, how many of you feel like that's mission optional?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I did the thing I need to do to go and do the mission critical thing, right? I set the appointment. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't need more work to do because the appointment's the appointment. So that's how it becomes mission optional. But going back to this particular one, it's interesting how something that feels so mission critical, when you can get yourself out of that upgrade kind of response sort of state and energy, and that you can see things as they more truly kind of are. And so, and again, resources. Now, if I go for a moment to the downgrade maneuvers, I just want to bring to your attention that the downgrade maneuvers are normalized. I just want to zoom in again, just 1 second. How do you zoom in? Window, zoom, zoom in. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm
Push the plus sign at the top.
No,
There you
this particular one, you just use your fingers and
Oh,
zoom whatever. Yeah, I don't know why it behaves in the strange way it behaves. Nevertheless, downgrade maneuvers, you're too far upgrade. So again, be the person who suddenly finds themselves with a car problem. And first thing that we would say, or the first thing you could look at, this is not in a particular order. It's just four general categories of things that you could do that would lower someone's level of tension. So normalize what you're experiencing. So is that really the first time you've ever had a car problem? Are you the only person who's ever had a car problem? Normalize it. And by the way, don't you have AAA? It's like, so normalize it, simplify it. I don't need to fix the car in this moment. I need to be able to just do whatever is necessary in that moment to advance things. As you guys heard me say, I was more concerned about Linda not being in a hot car than I was concerned about the car itself. Then you're going to add resources. And certainly as we started talking about some of the things that we did, the options you have, we could order it, we could whatever. And maybe it's also just restoring resources because you know what, you do have friends and you do have a golf cart. There are things you can do. So these kinds of things can lower someone's level of tension. We just want to make sure we're just lowering them to the center of the change grid. So whenever you're feeling too far upgrade, these are the kinds of things that you want to do. All right, so No, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to just be able to show you that incidental things are incidental, and don't need any attention as long as you are viewing them down grid, right? The moment one of those so-called incidental things ends up grid, it may very well be a problem. Or it's something that you're just having a big emotional reaction to. We just need to calm you down. And then,
Doesn't it automatically reorder priorities, T?
yeah, it does. Unfortunately, what is the reasoning behind the reordering that's taking place? Is there,
Right.
is it being driven by
Control.
emotions, or is it being driven by logic?
Right. This one is out of control.
This one is a bit out of control, a bit out of control. All right, I'll tell you a little bit more about the story. So we call the car dealership. They were closed by the time this all happened on Saturday. So we called this morning, very first thing, and they said, after Linda called 4 different Hyundai dealers in the valley, she finds out that the soonest that any of them can even examine our car is August 8th.
Wow.
And their reason for it is because they are suffering from a big shortage of mechanics. And second, that there are so many problems that people are having with their air conditioners right now that they're swamped trying to get things fixed. And so we just want to know, is this something that we can do to, can we keep driving the car? Is it okay? I mean, is it just a scared flight, or is it really a dangerous situation? And of course, they said, well, you should have the car towed to the dealership, and maybe we can fit in looking it in, you know, if we end up with some spare time or whatever the case may be. So that would take a car away from us for an entire week. So
T, there's a tool that you can buy and stick it right into your car's receptacle, and it'll tell you what the
and see, you've just added a resource. That's what you did. That's a downgrade maneuver. Well,
Yep.
Okay, there's another one.
yeah,
If you just bought gas recently, reset your gas cap.
yep.
Reset your gas cap?
Yeah, because the gas cap, if it isn't set correctly, it changes all the pressures that the sensors are reading.
Interesting.
They were saying, and I forget the exact statistic, but the vast majority of problems that a car reports are actually problems with the sensors, more so than problems with what the sensors are monitoring.
Right.
Yeah.
So particularly, look, we are existing in 114, 115 degree temperatures for 31 days. So we know how it's affecting us. Why wouldn't it affect the car? So,
Right,
you know,
right.
so, okay, anywho, now I said to Linda, well, you know what? I'm going to take the car for a little drive. Let's see if the problem persists. If it was temperature related, it's much cooler right now. Let's see what's going on. So this morning I took the car out, little drive around, went to get fill up the gas tank, stop by the grocery store. So I basically turned the car on and off 4 times. And at no time did it show me any warning light whatsoever.
Mine does that. Like UT, that the check engine will come on. If I shut the car off and restart it, it goes away.
Yep. And so that's what I'm going, like, I think it's a sensor issue. But I said to Linda, she wanted to go to her jazzercise class. I said, take it, go to jazzercise. You know, I mean, it's not even a mile away. If the light comes on, fine, leave the car parked there. They want us to have it towed. We can have it towed from wherever it is, if that's what we need to do. And I can come over and get you in the golf cart, or again, you can always grab an Uber or whatever. You get the idea? So I wanted to share this situation with you guys just so you could see this is how tension.
The light didn't come on.
The light, see, thank you, Linda. Linda's over at Susan Penner's right now. So this is what I'm saying. Now, I'm not ready to take the car off on a big trip. So, you know what I mean? I don't want to get too far away, but inside of Sun City West, we can run our little errands, we can do our little stuff. And then when that appointment date comes up, we can take the car in and say the light did come on. So run your diagnostics and let us know if there's a problem or if it was just a fluke. So I bring all this up today because I just wanted to be able to illustrate for you guys this idea about tension management in action. So we don't need to wait for something profound to happen in our life before tension management matters. It's playing out all day, every day. And
Mhm.
how we go. So how many of you know people that if they had car trouble would have become totally derailed emotionally by that situation?
Mhm.
Anybody?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
no, people just can't really, it becomes overwhelming. Or the thought like, what do you mean I won't have access to a car for a week? You know, how many of you go like, there are some people that would like destroy life as they know it.
Mhm.
When the
So
truth-
when the car I'm going down Grand, and when the car started like blinking the whole dashboard, shut off the engine now.
Oh,
That
that's
really
what
threw me
things
into
do.
stress.
Yep. And again, this is barely a mile away from the entrance, one of the entrances to Sun City West. So this is the whole thing. It's all tension management. And so basically what I just want you guys to kind of recognize is that everything that you're learning about tension management is probably being put to some sort of a test on an almost daily basis. So
Mhm.
why not apply it and go like, wait, X has just happened. I don't need to feel anything about X happening. I need to get myself to the center of the change grid, turn on my logic and say, now let's walk the path. What's the current situation? What's the desired situation? What's in my way? How am I going to overcome whatever it is that's in my way? And
Yeah,
if I,
you just said something quite important that I don't think happens enough is that idea of I don't need to feel anything in this moment,
yeah,
right? So it's like
emotionally, yeah,
the optimization, productivity, where I think people are like so obsessed with it that they create situations where more competing priorities are coming into play. And so they become overwhelmed quite easily because it seems like the math is all about addition. Or if I did more, I got to do more. It's like less. There's
mhm,
less things, particularly that doesn't create the value, but that takes a moment. Like you need to pause. And
you
David talks
absolutely
about
do.
this all the time in terms of like before a call, to do, some tension management, some self or walking the path of self-discovery. I don't
That's
know
right.
many people think about that.
Well, no, I mean, it's see, again, that's why I like to think that the Oracle of the Self is a useful program for, for the average person to spend some time exploring. You guys have spent quite the chunk of time exploring this, and that's all wonderful. But you get the idea. It's kind of like I don't need to be having all these responses to things. So yeah, X happened. Um, I obviously, if X happened, X needs to be dealt with. But I don't need to really feel anything about it because one of the biggest lessons I ever learned was the lesson of accepting the truth that the worst that anyone can do to you is inconvenience you. It
Mhm.
seems like they can do all kinds of horrible, horrible things. Nope, nope, nope. All they can do is inconvenience you. And anything else that you think is going above and beyond that inconvenient, you're the one who's putting that all there. It's just inconvenient. So the car has an issue. How inconvenient? But is it really anything more than that? No. But we know plenty of people who would let that absolutely derail them. They would become so upset, so angry about the situation, so worried about it, fatalistic, feudalistic. It's like no, 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 none of that's even useful. Why are that's up? Where are those voices? Shut those voices up. So the Oracle of Self is saying to you, find your true voice. And your true voice is the one that says, I am enough. I
Mm.
have everything I need in order to take care of the lion's share of things that I'm going to encounter in my life. I don't need to give it power it doesn't need to have. Now, to Brian's point, if you have a long habit of being upgrid, or you're exposed to a lot of people in other areas of your life, other messages, other messaging that's moving you upgrade becomes your new default location. So something that otherwise might not have put you upgrade has now put you upgrade. And obviously the situation isn't any different. So where is it getting all this energy? Where is it getting all of this power from? It is getting it from you relinquishing it from your logic and all that. So you got to be careful. Everyone is being conditioned to be in certain locations on the change grid, and they're being conditioned to be there because you being there is useful to whoever it is that's trying to move you there.
Mm.
And a long habit of, forget the original quote, our regular quote, but a long habit of being in a particular spot on the change grid starts to feel, if not normal, rather, what's the word for it?
You operationalize it.
Okay, tell us about that, operationalizing it.
Well, everything that the body does is operationalized in terms of, in neuroscience, we should jokingly call it an app. Like there's an app for that. So there's a strong association, there's a strong pattern, and there's a strong programming or process. And so that app becomes the operation. That's how literally for one neuron to connect to another, the communication, it literally has to fit like a locking key. So we may not understand what's underneath the behavior itself, but that behavior really is a mirror of the identity that precedes it. So it's important to understand these things.
Exactly. And so someone who, for whatever reason, over a period of time, has been conditioned to be upgrid. And you guys know enough about when I talk about upgrade, all the stuff that comes along with it. So we know this is about emotionally ruled reasoning abilities, reactive decision making, having emotions like anger, grief, fear, and shame that are distorting reality, feeling as though you have little, if any, resources. We can rattle off that whole list of characteristics of the upgrade energy or the stress response state in specific. And can you imagine if someone is pretty much living up there, how even the most minor thing that happens elsewhere in their life can suddenly be framed as being something that's also very far upgrid. So,
Can that also become addictive? You get a sort of addicted to the adrenaline and the, it's so important, I've got to move.
Well, Brian would tell you, Brian, you tell us if I'm missing something here, but first of all, there is a dopamine response that's going on here. You have a lot of fight or flight stuff that's going on. You have, so there's lots of endorphins. There's adrenaline could be going on. So you've got all that stuff. But the dangerous part is that this is also where cortisol is released. Cortisol is released upgrid and outgrid in the danger zones.
Absolutely. And that becomes a reward in and of itself, right? And so you have people who are addicted to the drama of things, and that kind of gets them going. And that's what they'll just know to do. They'll go there first instead of listening to some kind of reasoning, to some kind of logic.
Right, because for them, life is all about being upgrid. That everything in life is a problem, a challenge. Why is it happening to them? Blah, blah, blah. So this is where they do what we call awfulize. Do you guys remember me talking about awfulizing?
Yes, that was good.
All right, so for just in case, remember that when you are upgrid, you start to awfulize, which means you would be looking at the things that are awful that could be happening your way. You assume awful things are going to come your way. But the word awfulize is made of two words. What are the two words that make
awful and lies?
Awful and lies. And so you're telling yourself all of these awful lies that are ending up supporting, justifying, magnifying, what's the word? Sustaining what this energy is really all about. And none of this energy is helping you. Now, if all of what I've just said is true, then why would a human have such a response available to them?
Because they're bored otherwise?
Well, there could be some boredom, but I'll only go up to power stress for that. Why do we have this response available to us?
Well, because we need to know when to cut and run.
Right, because given the set of circumstances, we may need that flight response. We may need to know that. So here we've been gifted, if you will, with this possibility of going into this mode, this energy or whatever, but we were never intended to live there.
Right, exactly. And that's what emotions are. In the lab, when they study emotions, behavioral scientists, they never study what we call good or bad feelings. Emoto in Latin means movement. So
Mhm.
they're studying literally what triggers, and actually did this in research and see how long it takes for emotions to pass through the body. And it's literally seconds. So it's meant to be a signal, it's meant to be something
Quicker than
that the
that.
body's picking up, that your body's like absorbing something and you're using that as information. But again, if you're just always in the fight or flight response, it's not necessarily the most resourceful.
Well, right.
Cortisol is always released in the body at different times for different reasons, but to your point, it's definitely not meant to be there long term.
Right, right. Very powerful neurotransmitter designed to get you to do something very perhaps, well, challenging, I guess is the easiest word I could use, in that moment. But if you train yourself or if others move you and condition you to live up here, then all sorts of very bad stuff is heading your way. Cortisol is an extremely destructive neurotransmitter to have, what do I say, swimming around if it's not necessary. So, Brian, you want to rattle off the downside of cortisol?
Well, it's a hormonal. And so a hormone by definition literally means it's secreted in one area, but its impact on other areas can be deleterious over time. And so that's why it's not meant to be long lasting. It's meant to be in that moment, literally, and then go away. In fact, when cortisol is released, like even when you work out something good, your body literally releases from the hypothalamus to balance it out so that it can serve its purpose. But if you're just, again, always in that mode, now you're short circuiting or sort of overriding that system to work in its normal way. And so then now you're emitting cortisol all the time, then chronic issues that lead to all kinds of inflammatory states. You can find yourself in a heap of trouble quite fast.
That's right. And then all the physiological stuff that comes along with cortisol, too much cortisol for too long period of time, all those kinds of things that happen with your central nervous system or with your cardiovascular system. It's got all kinds, there's a high price to be paid for being in a cortisol rich environment. So anyway, so we don't want to be there. Now, similarly, someone might end up very far out grid. And the difference there, of course, is that upgrade wants to flee. Outgrid is ready to do what? Fight. And so that's the way they're responding to all that. Can you imagine if you were somebody who had been conditioned for so long to be this far outgrid that no matter what happened in your life, you viewed it all as being some sort of a contest, some sort of a battle, some sort of something where someone has to win and someone has to lose. And so this is a very confrontational kind of a place on the grid, exhausting to be around, probably exhausting to be. So we can certainly continue our way around the change grid and see a similar pattern occurring, although the way the pattern is going to demonstrate itself will be different. But nevertheless, it's not good stuff does not happen outside of the red circle. And a whole lot of questionable stuff happens between the green and the red. So that's where, again, where life is lived. This is normal stuff we all have to deal with, but let's deal with it and get back inside the green circle. Let's not deal with it and end up being in a danger zone because of that. Okay. I just need to check in. Is this okay? Is this too much? Is this?
Oh, heck yeah.
No, this is good.
Yeah, you like it? Okay, fine.
Hey,
So I
T.
have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say one more thing about upgrade. I just want to give you guys one more scenario to watch out for, because again, I do believe that because this is the oracle of the self, our focus has to be on how you have been unknowingly, unwittingly conditioned, perhaps even programmed by other people outside of you that are, for whatever reasons, again, knowingly or unknowingly, they're moving you to places on the change grid. You've got to become very aware of how this messaging is affecting you personally so that you can just kind of intervene before it does become a bit of a problem. I'll give you one example of this. How many of you have ever had or currently have someone in your life who has a pattern of having reactions to situations that are disproportionate to the situation itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of this. We have a friend, someone we hold very near and dear, who is like the queen of the disproportionate response. So we were sitting in the living room one time. They went to get
I'm
a
shocked it's a woman.
no, that just
Oh.
happens to be the case. I mean, I can count my 3 guy friends on, 3 fingers. So anyway, so we're in the living room. They went into the kitchen to get their little glass water, whatever. We got one of those ice dispenser things. And any of you who have a refrigerator with an ice dispenser things knows that once in a while, you don't position the glass right and water splashes someplace, or you grab an ice cube and then the water ricochets off the ice cube and blah, blah, blah. All right, right? This is not a world-ending sort of an event, right? This particular individual, when this little bit of water went splashing, I'm telling you, they freaked out. They said, "Oh my God!" And it's like this really loud, very reactive kind of thing. And of course, we're thinking, "What, did she fall upon a knife block or something?" It's like, what's the shrieking all about? And it was that water had splashed onto the floor. Okay, you're with me on this? Do you know anybody like that? That has
Oh,
these
gosh,
Yes.
of
Yeah.
course.
wildly disproportionate responses to situations. So that's another thing that lets you know that this person has been conditioned to be very far up grid. And by the way, the conditioning certainly can come from the outside, but it's also about patterns in your own thinking. So sometimes you wonder how much of this is being maybe initiated, if not initiated, kind of propagated by someone's own belief system. You start to believe that all this messaging you've been receiving is actually true, and now you become the perpetuating voice of nonsense. So yeah, so got to be very, very careful about all that. All we want to do is to lower ourselves to be in a healthier spot before we give any situation all that much energy.
If somebody's trained themselves to be that far up grid, what do you do for them?
Well, first of all, I would think that they would benefit very much from having a coaching relationship with somebody.
Uh-huh.
Because this is where they're going to have to get into some cognitive behavioral therapy sorts of things. And some people on the phone are actually, and certainly those that are listening to the recordings, you hold a license in a hands-on healthcare field, so you can get away with all kinds of stuff that those of us that have other designations have to be a little more careful around. But this person definitely needs to talk to somebody, because you're talking about patterns of behavior that have created the situation. We need to be able to go in and rework those patterns of belief and behavior, so those beliefs can lead to different behaviors, or we can exercise those beliefs or test those beliefs to help the person find their own truth, and let that then lead to that. Yeah, we could just give them, well, you could administer any number of drugs and alcohol, and in the moment, their level of tension will go down, but it's not going to fix the underlying problem. So a long pattern is going to require some coaching, some personal work to be done, I think. What do you guys think of that? You agree with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah. I would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
agree.
it's
Because I
behavioral therapy.
think there's a difference between, at least I seen in myself, what I had to train myself through martial arts. There's a big difference between what's called exteroception, or being
Mhm.
externally driven by things instead of being internally led. And I used to be quite the opposite. So, everyone's seeing this calm demeanor now. There's not much that get to me, but that's trained because
Yeah,
of
of
my
course, of
father,
course.
all these different, countries we lived in, different things that were kind of shaping this identity. And I'm just like, what the hell? No, this isn't what I
Right.
want.
Well,
So
and
I had to reshape it.
let's rewind this to kind of like the moment of birth. you come into this world as a perfectly balanced kind of blank slate, if you think about it. I mean, yeah, the lights are bright and the temperature's cold and there's all these giants all around you. And so maybe there's a little bit of upgradness around there, and you're hungry, and you know, you're trying to figure out how your lungs work and all that. So there's definitely an upgrade element to all that kind of stuff. But you come into this world as a balanced, happy, harmonious kind of being. And then you start getting trained and conditioned and programmed
Mhm.
by everyone around you. And if you're raised in a neurotic household, guess what you're likely to become?
Mhm.
Right. You're likely to
Yeah.
become neurotic. And if you're raised by a bunch of, well, psychotics, there would be some underlying, you know, organic kinds of things going on as well. But if you're constantly being shown those kinds of decision-making strategies, those kinds of behaviors that come along with those decisions, you might be conditioned to be very far out grid or you know, wherever, I don't know. It depends on wherever you were raised, but you're going to be conditioned one way or another. And based on that conditioning, that you're going to be little by little discovering, defining what normal might mean for you.
Right.
You know, it's not necessarily normal when you apply it to all of society, but for you, that's your normal way of doing things. Your normal way of doing things.
But you know what's interesting to me about this oracle of self, when I talk to patients and when I talk to people about my own evolution, and I've been doing interviews for a book that I'm exploring called Retooling and Refueling. And this idea about reflection is a key part to that. And I ask people about what they do before work, their recovery strategies after work to calm themselves down for stress. I would say out of 62 interviews thus far, probably about 80, more than 80%, people say, who has time for reflection? I don't have time for that. Life is too busy.
Wow.
I
Mhm.
hear this time and time again, and these are different demographics from young to old, especially in the US when I'm talking to like uh, federal workers for the government, and they have this eloquent like exit plan because yeah, I can retire at 54, be fully vested, and then I'm asking like, what will you do after? And I have a business plan, but now mind you, they're already, you know, informed me of their health issues. And so it kind of reminds me of what the Dalai Lama says when he was asked what surprises him about humanity. And he said, man, because man would sacrifice his health for money, and then it sacrifices money to recuperate his health.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that's exactly how these people are working, because it kind of reminds me of like when I hear you don't have time to reflect, um, they're saying you don't have time to invest in you,
Well,
is
you're
what they're
absolutely right.
saying.
And, you know, we've talked a lot about this. I know, well, Kathy's not on today's call, but she's talked a lot about some different kinds of practices around mindfulness, meditation, that sort of thing. There are things that we can do to move ourselves to the center of the change grid. When we get to the PowerPoint maneuvers, we can certainly examine that again. But basically, anytime you are, I want to say, practicing a system. I won't say practicing a practice of meditation. You really are separating yourself. So we talk about the center of the change grid, practicing the art of caring detachment. Well, most of these things about meditation, even yoga, anything like that, it really is an exercise in separating oneself from whatever is happening in the moment.
That's true. I have a particular, I like to just pause, take a breath and say serenity now.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
Everything reverts to Seinfeld. But
yeah,
doesn't
that's true. It's true.
but that puts you in a mindset, perhaps, or makes you available for reflection, but that doesn't make you reflect.
No.
You have to actually reflect, and why did I overreact? Why did I get mad? Why did
Right.
that hurt my feelings? Why, whatever.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's where we this idea about developing a practice. So
Mhm.
it's great to be able to find yourself in a calm spot, to know that you can move yourself into a calm mindset anytime you want is a wonderful tool to have. But once you get there, there is work to be done. And
Right.
that's what
Right.
you're talking about. It's like, but I need to be taught a system. How do you go about examining your responses and all that? And that, of course, is what we hope the Oracle of the Self is, pointing people at least in the right direction about how to become a little bit more of a lovingly critical thinker, critically loving thinker. You love yourself, but you gotta be honest with yourself.
And I think that's the start, because to Anja's point, if they're not in the right mindset, then you can't even begin that process. So like for me, my thing was to, I was a preemie baby to learn how to mind-body connection thing, and it was just fiery, kind of feisty. I called it the Chihuahua syndrome. It's kind of like the little dog always barking at the bigger dogs kind of a thing. So my thing was always projecting. So whenever, I'll get mad at my father because he's very stringent, everything I's dotted, T's crossed kind of thing. My grandfather was the exact opposite. So he's the one who taught me, and he used to tell me, what do you want out of this situation? And I say, I want peace. He said, then sometimes silence is your best advocate. And I was going, but I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. He said, no, you don't get it.
Yeah, right. Because
you can still be right, but if you're saying you want peace, you must be on the side of peace. And so, like, when I get to that center, and I do this every day, I ask myself, what do I learn? How can I grow? What do I need to develop? So that takes me inward instead of projecting outwardly, like this person made me mad.
Right. It's kind of like, no, that didn't happen.
Right. So that's what I do every day in terms of when I get in a centering mindset.
What you're describing, let's go back to the maneuvers for just a second. You really are talking about a down-grid maneuver still, where what you're doing is, well, you started off by adding a resource, that whole reflective methodology, whatever it is you've put together. That's something that you've added to your toolbox. So I think that to Anja's point, part of the challenge is that people don't have the tools. And one of the reasons why they don't have the tools is because, where's the ChangeGrid? Because they've been conditioned to being so far wherever they are, that those tools have not been either needed, or even if they've been needed, they haven't been mobilized. Or they haven't been effectively, put into action. We can
Or
be.
how about if those poor fools have become operational, like what Brian said? That's interesting. Because your brain can change things. Your brain can change how you see things. It can actually change your vision of how long a line is.
That's right. Absolutely right. And so that becomes part of the challenge. Again, if we wanted to, all right, the Oracle of the Self is really supposed to be focusing on you, becoming a better you, taking better care of you. Okay, it's all about you. But very quickly, people start to take what they know about themselves or are learning about themselves and start to observe things in other people. And so usually it's someone that's close to them, friends, family members, coworkers, whatever it happens to be. But then at a certain point, we'd like them to be able to take those insights and now generalize them to the population as a whole, or to a larger group of people to see what's really going on. What do you think happens if you're in a company and someone inside the company has successfully moved the majority of the workers into an upgrade space? So all that goes along. So that's what they've been doing. They basically keep reminding people you don't have the ability. The challenge is great. They keep you in your emotions and don't want you to move into logic. Don't ask and answer questions. Just feel what you're feeling and be angry and blah, blah, blah. Now, why would they do that inside of an organization? Why would that individual, I haven't even told you what their job is, but why do you think someone might want to do that? Standardize? Now you're giving them all kinds of noble credit.
I think it's because they want control.
Control, yeah.
They want control.
And mine sounds like the military, right?
Well, yeah, leave it in a corporate setting for just a while, because what I've just described is how unions get into organizations. So someone is representing the union. Before the union comes in, the union has to know that your business exists and all that. Then the union is going to try to align with an individual, then a few individuals inside the organization. And those individuals are going to go out there and share the message about how evil the company is and how great the union is, and on and on and on, and how much you need the union because you can't fight these people yourself. You don't have the ability to meet that challenge. And they awaken the emotions, anger and fear in order to do that. Okay, you've been manipulated into that particular situation. Now, that's not to suggest that there aren't real problems that really do need to be looked at and dealt with, but it's that ability to move someone into that mindset. Now,
I think their strongest play is lust. See,
okay, you were kind of garbled there. Their strongest play
is lust.
is lust, exactly, which is one of the emotions of power stress, the wanting of something. And what do they want? David,
More money.
they want more money.
Control.
Control. They want
They
control.
want control.
They want more job security. They want more benefits. Whatever it is, they want something. And somehow or another, they've been convinced that they do not, cannot, and will not have those things unless the union is brought in to defend them and fight for them and blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not saying that unions are inherently good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm talking only about the mechanics of how we go about managing a group's level of productive tension to move them to a place on the change where they will relinquish their control to whoever this advocate happens to be.
So it becomes externally influenced. And then you talk about that in terms of upgrade and outgrade, was it? Like it's externally influenced as opposed to internal?
Well, upgrade changes are driven by external factors.
Right.
And outgrade changes are driven by internal factors. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. So just recognize if you've got people that have been moved up here often enough, long enough, they're going to start to feel that not only can they not trust their business's management, who else can't they trust? At what levels do they continue to play this out? So suddenly they can't trust who else? What else?
Their own thoughts.
Their own thoughts, can't trust that because obviously they pulled the wool over our eyes. So I can't count on myself. I've got to listen to these externals. Well, how many other externals are there that are trying to get you to be afraid of whatever their agenda focus happens to be? So what I'm saying is that people that are easy, that find themselves upgrade easily, are easily moved upgrade by anyone who's trying to manipulate them to do just about anything. So why should you mistrust your employers when I can get you to mistrust your city government? I can get you to mistrust an industry. I can get you to mistrust anything and everybody on whatever scale you want it to be on. These people are ripe for that manipulation to occur. Does that make sense? Yes.
Very much.
Sure.
And so I need people who are part of the Oracle of Self to recognize when one of these manipulators is trying to impact them and defend yourself accordingly. And so you don't get pulled up here. You kind of go like, I can see exactly what they're doing. And if they'd hired me to be a consultant to teach them how to do what they're doing, I could teach them how to do it even better than they're doing it. But they're not going to do it to me.
Hey, I wonder what is your perception of defend yourself accordingly? So when I seem to do that, I don't know if it's I call it, like when I met the late John Lewis, he would call it good trouble. But I've been told several times that, man, you might get deported because you're causing some trouble with, principles and powers that be kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm not even a confrontational person, but I don't hold back with expressing my opinion.
here's the thing, and I'll give you the quick answer since we're at the top of the hour. But the very first thing anyone should be able to do in the world of the Oracle of the Self is to detach yourself from whatever's going on. So you don't need to say anything to anybody. You don't need to do anything in terms of interacting with anyone around you or the situation around you. The first thing you need to be able to do for your own benefit and the benefit of those you hold near and dear is to separate yourself emotionally, intellectually, perhaps even physically from whatever it is that this nonsense is going on, the drama that's all unfolding around you. And then from that detached place, you can now start doing things like the Buffalo maneuver. How very interesting. What is their underlying motivation? What is whatever's going on? So you can start to assess it.
So
But
management's approach is to move the population.
management approach would be to, as in terms of counteracting a unionization attempt, is to move the employees down grid.
Mm.
To let them know there's nothing to worry about. None of this stuff is really happening. This is what you guys have been given. This is what we can do. We can, work together, blah, blah, blah. So while the union is trying to move people up grid, the management is trying to move the company down grid because the vote hasn't been taken yet. Now, once the union is in place, the dynamic changes.
Mm. Yeah.
Now it becomes you'll watch both management and the union move out grid. And now the battle begins. Now the real fight begins.
Yeah, I think I need to work on that detachment part a bit more. When I see something, I just call it out. I don't,
Well, and
yes,
and
I just call it out.
right,
Just
but
all
only
bullshit.
so only you can answer.
All bullshit.
Exactly. That's where I go immediately.
Yep.
Right. And so, and I will tell you that I probably do that quite automatically, but I don't verbalize it.
See, I verbalize it. That's
Yeah,
probably
and
people
so
like,
the
what?
verbalizing it is what becomes really mission optional, So, yeah, we can even
say.
Yeah, we could even come up with a new category, the things that are, mission complicating activities. You don't need to do that. That's not going to help, but you need to be aware of it. So that's what I'm saying. Detach yourself, become an observer of what's going on. So you understand it. You're in the world, but not of it. You let the winds of heaven dance around you. You're insulated from whatever the nonsense is. And the moment you do that, their power over you is gone. So that's what we care about.
I
Now.
always thought like when you get older, that comes easier,
It doesn't.
Yeah, I'm finding that out.
Sad but true.
Yeah, now what does happen?
Bullshit detector becomes higher, the calibration of your bullshit detector gets ratcheted up.
Yep. Because you really learn from observing nonsense in daily life. You start to realize that it comes in all different shapes and sizes.
And it cycles.
Right, it cycles, exactly right. Moves around and all that. But I do think one thing that happens as people get older is that they stop filtering what it is that they are actually saying. Other people. And I'm just saying to you from the Oracle of the Self perspective that it is neither necessary nor necessarily beneficial for you to verbalize something. So at a certain point in time, you get to decide, I'm going to verbalize it, and whatever the consequences are, they are. But choose that wisely. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a different situation on the change grid which gets us to where we started, at least tried to begin, about, see, it even logged us out. That's how much time we took away. But there's a change grid to just grab everything you were working on. So next time around, let's see if we could actually finish a good activity list so you guys know what it is that's really mission critical. I'm glad we had this conversation, though, because it did give us a chance to start talking in greater detail about some of these maneuvers. And it also gave us an opportunity to, I think, explore or reinforce our understanding of these different areas of the change grid and why they may be counterproductive or detrimental to our life.
Absolutely.
So detach. That's your skill. If you guys learn nothing else out of this program, if you can just be in the midst of chaos and say, rather than being in the chaos, I'm just going to become an observer of the chaos around me. I'm no longer going to participate. I'm just going to observe. What do you think happens to you when you step out of the drama and instead become someone in the audience watching the drama?
You gain control.
You gain control.
And sometimes you get entertained.
You do. Well, that's the whole thing about it's a strange thing to say, but I can tell you that one of my very closest friends when I lived in Michigan, and that is someone that most people didn't understand at all why I considered him to be a friend, because they just thought he drove me nuts or whatever the case may be. And I said, everything you're saying about him is true, about him being all self-absorbed and blah, 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 blah. And I say, but I already know all that about him. So when I'm spending time with him, I find his behavior amusing. And so
Yeah, that's true.
the day it's no longer amusing, I will either detach physically as well as everything else. I mean, there's nothing to confront. He's not really someone who is self-aware enough to actually be able to do anything with whatever feedback I would give him. So now it's on me.
I
So
would love
yeah.
to explore that detachment part, because what's fascinating for me from a behavioral perspective is I'm very good at detaching in many areas, but when it comes to health, health systems, I don't play around with it, because it's not like you're shopping for a bag of potato chips, right? You only
Well,
got
right,
one
right,
life
right.
to live. And so I don't cut corners with that. It just seems like
So,
I don't know the detachment there for some reason. That's like one of the
well,
areas
no,
that I
let's
just
ask.
don't.
Then let's dive into this question of it. If you've chosen to continue a particular behavior, um, the question becomes, do you have evidence now that it has worked? Is it
No, I don't have evidence that it hasn't worked.
okay? Well, then there. So you're still, if you want to say we're still experimenting with this, maybe we need to be more confrontational when it comes to this particular subject, because people aren't listening. They're not paying attention to this. So maybe I need to be more emphatic. Maybe I need to be louder. Maybe I need to be, more documented, whatever it is. But I would just say to you that if you are continuing to practice an approach that has not produced any kind of measurable benefit, then something's seriously wrong with that approach and you need to abandon it, find something else.
Got it. Got
You
it.
know what I'm saying? It's
Okay.
just kind of like,
Yeah.
come on, it's either if it's helping you, fine. Or as I said, right now you're saying like, the case is still out. I don't know if it's really helping or not helping. Okay, then continue as you are, but pay close attention to what the outcomes happen to be.
Got it.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense. That's reasonable.
Yeah, right. I would also suggest that you do a little self-reflection on whether or not the amount of passion that you have for this particular subject is um, is enough, is too little, or is too much for the outcome you desire to happen most efficiently.
Interesting.
You know. I mean, I can tell you from being on different kinds of committees that were working on different things that we could all have common ground. Everyone could agree that, yeah, X is something we really need to take care of. But how many of you ever been involved in any kind of these organizations where you really do believe that the organization's intentions are really solid and you really do support whatever's going on, but there is a person who is doing things in a particular way that is just driving you insane?
Hmm.
And so it really has nothing to do with,
Here, T.
yeah, is that right? Yeah, it has nothing to do with the issues itself. It has to do with this person. Well, that's a totally different activity, isn't it?
Mm.
So, yeah. And so that's what you really need to kind of just spend some time looking at. Is it not working, or is it not working because this person is not workable? So.
This is a coaching call. I like
Yeah.
this.
I'll send you an
Oh,
invoice.
that's good, Brian.
There you go. There you go. There you go. But yeah. Always recognize that, if any of you find yourself in a situation that you find personally troubling or frustrating or whatever word you want to attach to it, you always have to ask yourself, what is my role in this drama continuing? So I'm a player, I'm on the stage, I'm in the performance. What am I doing that's making all this happen or allowing it to continue going on? That's why we talk about detaching yourself first. If you can detach yourself, you're an observer, and you may very well observe that your lack of involvement could produce a better outcome than your involvement.
Great. I got two things to write about in my journals for the detachment part, but I'm still captured attention-wise in terms of this fact that I don't have to feel nothing. I can sit it out, right?
Well, absolutely. But you're not well, I'll just speak from my personal experience of you. You're not the kind of person who has moss growing under your feet.
No.
That, that's just not you. So,
Yeah.
where I have a very different kind of an attitude about life in general, about the future specifically. It's like it's going to be whatever it is. I have the thought that I have any real serious level of control over the vast majority of things that are going to impact us is nonsense. So,
Yeah, but I grew up with as an athlete, and so for me, that detachment and deciding to sit it out, what it offers me the opportunity to do is to decide how I'm going to play the game. So
there
when I
you
look
go.
at what makes a great athlete great, the great athletes don't complain about the rules and all those kinds of things because they're subject to that as everyone else is. But what makes the great athletes great is I say they have a signature presence. Like they decide how they're going to play the game, and that's what they're known for.
Yeah.
I think the missing element for me is I haven't decided how I'm going to play this game, knowing what I know, what the gaps are. So I get caught up in you know what, that's dumb. Like literally I say
Right.
that kind of stuff and that sets people off because they're like, what is
Yeah,
this?
but it's true. And see, what you're doing from a tension management perspective is that you've moved yourself into the center of the change grid where there's a bench sitting right there that is just kind of a place of sitting and waiting, a place to observe whatever's going on around you. And so that's about checking out of the game or whatever the case may be, separating yourself. And then from that spot, you can see things much more clearly all the way around you. It's a great 360 view, and then decide what, if anything, you're going to do. This is where people should spend most of their time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll continue this discussion, obviously, next time around. Brian, I do want to draw to your attention that Chris posted a note to everyone.
Yes.
So, Brian, a doctor on a radio show mentioned that 90% of serotonin in the body is created in the gut. Is this true? I do believe that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very true.
But if you want to reach out to him privately, you know how to reach Chris?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, reach out to him and answer his question because he's dropped off the call now. I think he had an appointment right at the top of the hour.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so any final questions, thoughts, comments?
Thank
Great
you for the
session.
session.
Good. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Next time
Great.
around, maybe we'll talk about activities, but for now.
Yeah, this was excellent.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.
Have a good day, everybody.
Glad you're back, Linda. Glad you're
Thank
back.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
I'm glad she's back too.
Yeah, yeah, likewise. Bye-bye.